Hello and good morning. Thank you for joining us here at Earth and Sky, where we're based out of Flint, Michigan, and we'd like to bring these broadcasts to you every Sunday. We are talking today. I'm so happy to have JJ here with me. I know a lot of people like it when we do these together, and today we wanted to talk about fear as the primary thing we're talking about, but it really reflects in with fear, empowerment, truth, and reality. So how do those four things combine? It is. and so one of the things we were discussing earlier, I think it was last week, we were talking about this. Sometimes we get visions in our head, and fear affects our behavior, and it begins to hinder our clarity to be able to make rational decisions. So really it starts to become about trying to avoid what might be scary.
Well, you're afraid of what might be there.
Right, when it's not actually even the reality of what is there, but the what ifs, that fear that gets into the head and starts to spiral and churn around, and that can actually be the quickest way to make yourself susceptible to being manipulated and coerced by people.
Right. Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because like then the fear seems, it's like when you're a kid. That's easiest because you haven't really learned the ins and outs of things, and so that fear aspect seems so pure. So like if, I think a lot of people would understand like the concept of like if you're, say it's like late at night and you're in bed and you're trying to go to sleep and there's this dark shadow that goes across your bedroom floor and you're terrified. What could it be? You know, and that fear of what that might be is so overwhelming because you don't know what it is and you don't really have enough grasp on the world to know what to do with it. You know, that's what you rely on your parents for, and you know, you hope that everything's going to be okay, but you're so afraid, and it's that same core thing that I think we start to bring out as we've gotten older. We actually use that still. As adults, we start to rely on that same core of not knowing what something is, we're not knowing what the truth is, and allowing that to kind of drive directions in our lives, you know?
Yeah, and in all honesty, just like with children, when they see those scary shadows in the room that make them terrified and either cry out for their parents or run for the parents' room to crawl in bed with them because they just don't know what it might be. Is it a monster on the floor?
Right.
Just like for people, is it a monster outside?
Yeah.
Who is the person that you don't know that you're afraid of? We see a lot of that in the world today.
Who's that person knocking at my front door?
Right, and honestly, it really is very rarely, it's pretty much usually never
pretty much
as scary as the anticipation.
Well, it's almost never actually scary.
It's not, right, exactly, and the reality, the truth of it, really.
Almost never a bad thing. But it is
and it's never as scary as the anticipation that your imagination begins to stir up when you start thinking about the what ifs and what could it could
just
possibly
like when you're a kid,
be.
And so you're hiding under the covers and you're scared to death of what that shadow, that thing might be, and you have all of these horrible imagination, these things popping in your head, and then once you dig up that courage to go look, and it's, you know, a tree, or it's somebody walking down the street and their shadow happened to be projected in your window, you know.
Or the ceiling fan was rotating and it started catching the shadows of things
or something that's set near the window and it's just projecting that shadow. But it's usually almost always something relatively innocuous, but.
And people do this in relationships sometimes too, where they feel like, what if my partner is thinking this, or what if my partner is doing that, or what if they don't love me as much, or what if this and that is one side of it.
Yeah, and then, and that what if is the idea of what if something isn't really what I think it is.
Yes.
So especially from what I've seen is people like in a relationship, they want to believe, okay, this is who I'm dating, this is who this person is, and this is what they've shown me, and so I want that to be true. That's what I've fallen for, that's what makes me comfortable, that's
the presentation the person gave.
Yes, and that's where my safety is, and so I'll just stick with that. And so if there are situations that come up that don't seem to mesh with that, you know, they have the weird little, they come in really late at night suddenly, or you have like family members that go, by the way, we saw them doing this or something like that happen, and or just these weird out of the norm situations arise, and the person just goes, yeah, it's nothing, yeah, it's fine, because facing what if, facing what it might be, facing something that might rock their base world of reality is just too scary. It's there. That's the shadow.
That's the other side of that too. Yes, exactly.
Okay, and what was this original side you were saying?
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying the first side of it is where people have that what if, and they start to have all of the fear and all of the possibilities that might not even be going on, but they have fear of all the potential possibilities of the what ifs. Yeah. But then the other side of that is the avoidance of it as well,
yes, exactly.
Which is what you were just talking about.
Yeah, and so it's those hiding from those things, hiding from those fears is just like when you're a kid. The fear is so much more overwhelming. The fear of what might be is so much more, and adds to, you know what I mean, the general fear of basically your world starting to fall apart. And people are and if you start building one thing after another, so if you do it in a relationship, and then you also do it in, your finances, and then you also do it in your job, and as you start turning away from those fears as much as you can, because you let that fear kind of drive you, you start to build your world it's a false world. I mean, you're not actually living in the real world, And so actually taking those things on, oh, that seemed weird, and then you go find out why that was weird, and finding out that it really was something innocuous, or if you find out, God forbid, it wasn't something innocuous, but it hasn't built, it hasn't, you haven't had to turn a blind eye over and over again to find out it really was something, or, and so picking it up, finding things out at the beginning, knowing the truth, will always be more beneficial.
Truth is very, very liberating, and we've seen that a lot with many people that we know, many clients and friends lately. It seems like a lot where they would hear certain things, asking for opinions, and people in relationships, and just not wanting to hear it. I think that there's a lot of chemicals that go on in the brain too, the oxytocin, that especially with love, more than any kind of relationship. It's those love relationships where people will overlook things many, many times because they don't want the relationship to end.
Yeah, they don't want to know because it might be detrimental to the relationship.
And sometimes that occurs early on in relationships. It might be a relationship of just a few months, and sometimes it's relationships that have been where people have been together for several years. Exactly. But they don't want to face what seems like it might be right in front of them, and they tend to hide and turn away from it because they're afraid if they do bring it up, if they do deal with it and talk to the person that they're with, that it might end the relationship.
Or it might
not.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing.
It might be completely fine, but if you're hiding from that and you're kind of hiding from the fear of it instead of facing it and just plunging in and seeing what the truth is, seeing what the reality is, and making your decision from there. It might even be something that's true, but it's something you want to live with personally. All of these, when you have the truth, when you face the truth, instead of hiding from the fear, then you really have the opportunity to fully live and make a true conscious decision, an empowered choice.
And the world you're actually living in. And to me personally, that's such a big deal. I mean, we're here for a reason. And living in the world you're actually surrounding yourself in, the true world to me is a really big deal. And one thing you said is when you said about asking people about what they think and stuff. And one of the ways I've seen, this happens we've seen it in culture right now, is a huge thing because we have access to so many people's opinions now that we never had before. It used to be, before the multimedia explosion, that we just had news and the people we came across on a day-to-day basis.
And news used to be more factual instead of emotion-based.
That's true. Yeah. But now it's, people are like, if you disagree with X, I will just, if that that the idea of somebody disagreeing that your ideas of how the world might be are wrong, so they just go to another source.
Right.
Oh, you think that's wrong, and I don't like that, so I'll ask you, and I'll ask you, and I'll ask
I'll
you.
find someone who
And
agrees with
eventually
me.
you can find somebody. There's always somebody you can find that will go, oh yeah, that makes sense to me, even if it's wrong, you know? And so that's another part of the running from reality.
Yeah, and when you talk about the cultural base too, there's so much of that with fear lately too. It seems like
Yeah.
so much where people are afraid of people from many different countries, and they've
And,
found a lot of reasons
backgrounds.
where there's this groupthink mentality,
Yes.
and we've
It's called the
branded
mob mentality.
right, and we've branded entire cultures, entire groups of a wide variety of people into one small stereotype, and we assume everybody in each of those different regions around the world
Yeah.
are exactly like what we think, and we can
Yeah.
sum it up into 3 or 4 words.
Yeah, exactly.
And it varies depending on who you ask what those 3 or 4 words are.
Right, well,
but
not-
they are steadfast, even without having a personal knowledge or a personal,
Oh, of course.
or,
But
looking into it.
But so-and-so says so it has to be true.
Right,
And,
right.
well, and then not just groups around the world, but I mean,
Cultures within the US.
socioeconomic groups,
Yes.
the ones with money, the ones without money, the ones with, everybody's being
Race
clumped.
issues.
Race, absolutely. Everybody's getting clumped into their
Cliques of
niche
stereotypes.
of whether they're good or bad people. And it's like, that's the whole problem with that, is there is no good and bad
Right.
anybody.
People are
There-
lots of layers
There's
within each.
there's nice, there's not nice, there's caring, there's not caring. There's, there's the full spectrum of every single one of those groups. Every one of those people are unique independent people, and you can't just group them all together in any way, shape, or form.
Right, and to think for yourself, how would you like to feel if people are stereotyping you into a group based on whether it's what you look like, or your economic status, or your education status? Do you feel like you would fit the 3 or 4 words that many people in
Right.
society
Would
might
call you,
label onto
yeah.
you? Or do you feel like you're more than that? Do you feel like you have layers and you have aspects that maybe other people wouldn't know without knowing you as an individual?
I'm pretty sure I'd be happy with any group taking me. I would be really happy. Anybody who wants to take me with the group, I'll join. I never fit, so I'll join.
And so, but think about what you think about various people. Choose different cultures and, and images of people. And if you feel like you have certain stereotypes about people, and especially if there's a fear base behind
Yes.
any of those thoughts, I'd really encourage and challenge you this week to dig deeper within yourself and see if you really feel like that actually fits for everyone,
That
or
you've
are
ever
you
met.
or are you running from the potential of what your imagination or the anticipation of what fear
Just like
you
when you were a
feel
kid.
from them?
Just like when you were a kid.
Yeah, and it seems like there are so many times where I can look at people, and especially the way communication has devolved so much,
Yes.
even more so with social media, but even in person, people are starting to have these escalations of emotional
responses,
arguments.
yes.
And
Yeah.
a lot of that comes out of a fear-based or self-righteous kind of a stance for things.
But even self-righteous, usually, there's a sense of fear that comes from that.
Fear and
that,
avoidance,
that they
yes.
might not be as amazing as they think they are.
Right,
And
or
so
they
the
don't want to
easiest
cut
way-
not being right about what they feel of their
Right,
judgment for
right,
someone,
right.
so they'll stand even more firm within it.
Which is funny, because it seems almost like that we're starting to believe that what we feel is right. And I was
Right.
always raised in the understanding that you can't always control your emotions, but your
Mhm.
emotions necessarily don't run with logic. And I
Right.
mean, so if your emotions don't run with logic, that means they're illogical. And so if it's not logical,
Maybe you need to
you might want to go,
more into
I
the
feel like
reason
this.
side of your brain.
I understand that doesn't make any sense, but that's how I feel. So maybe I'll ignore those feelings for right now until I can logic out the way that it is reality, We're not in the bush anymore, so I don't need to be afraid of a tiger on the other side of the bush.
Yeah.
So maybe now I can actually go and see what it is that I'm afraid of, as opposed to the reaction of, let's just run.
Right. Exactly, and
So-
that's one of the things that should set us apart. The more we have evolved as citizens
Yeah.
of this world, and
Cities and
yeah, because when we had that fight or flight that
Yeah.
really would drive us as hunters and gatherers, there were needs sometimes
Absolutely.
to really have that fear. And
It was-
kind of
it kept us
broken
alive.
in.
Yeah,
Yes,
it kept us
did.
alive.
But we're in a different day and age
Yeah.
now where we don't have to keep running from things. We can face things straight on. And when you choose to look at things calmly and rationally, instead of getting stuck in that anticipation of what might be or what possible fears there are, and instead taking a step back and calmly and just logically looking at it and
Yeah.
asking yourself, does this make sense? Do I know from facts that my
first-hand
opinion
facts.
on this, from firsthand facts, not what other people say, not what the news
Yeah.
says, not what a groupthink mentality tells you, do you know firsthand from experiences that the fears that you have in your mind are validated? If not, then it might be good to take a risk. It might be good to stand in your power, to feel empowered, to know that you're not going to let the fears of the possibilities within your mind or what other people are telling you, let that overrun
Overwhelm,
your whole
yeah.
life.
Yep.
Don't let that make you sit afraid within your house with the doors locked and afraid of
When
who's
someone-
going to be coming.
someone knocks at the door and you absolutely are freaking out.
Yeah, and that applies within your house. It applies within the boundaries of your
Everything,
community,
yep.
within the boundaries of your country.
Yep.
Instead, think about what firsthand experiences you've had with people. I think most people would recognize that as a general, their experiences are not that bad.
Yeah.
And then wait, and if there's somebody that does,
Direct, no, and that's the other thing is, I mean, if somebody independently you come across,
exactly,
regardless of anything, if they independently put you on edge,
then that
then
single
stay away
person.
from that person. I
It
mean, that-
doesn't mean everybody around them or their education level or their economic
Or their
status or their
race,
race or
or
their
their
country.
gender, or
Doesn't mean
whatever.
everybody that fits in whatever box you're wanting to put them in is bad. We are all individuals.
Yeah.
We're all here in this human condition trying to do the best we can.
Yeah.
Most people on this planet really are just wanting to live the best that they can. They're
Yeah.
doing the best with what they know.
And what
They're
they
wanting
have.
their families to have food.
Yeah.
They're wanting to have their families be safe
and have chances and,
and
safety
opportunities as
and-
much as
yeah,
possible.
Absolutely.
And we're
Of
all
course.
so much the same, and that relates with so many things in your life. Whatever it is you feel like you have that anticipation of fear, really I challenge you to go into that logic side of your mind,
Yep.
see how you can calmly,
That same courage that you felt as a kid when you actually got out of bed and went to
exactly,
see
what was in the
that
closet.
shadow. Was there really something under that bed? You
Yes,
know,
yeah.
that little dark strip that was on the side of the closet door that you didn't know what was behind that dark strip.
Instead of
Was there anything in there?
Yeah.
No, there wasn't.
Exactly. So stop hiding under the covers in your life.
Yep.
Uncover yourself. Stand in your power
Yep.
and recognize that you as a person can live your best life when you stand in light, when you stand in love, when you're looking for the truth from personal, true, real experience, then you are becoming a light and a beacon in this world. And you are becoming one of those who is radiating love
Yeah.
and who can be an example to other people as well.
And can live in this world happily.
And that's the biggest thing, is that when you're standing in your power that way, when you're looking at the truth, then your life is going to feel like it finally falls into place. You're not running from shadows anymore. You're standing within your life. You're controlling, you're directing your life. I often talk about writing your own fate, manifesting your destiny. Well, standing in your power, seeing the truth of your life is one of the key cornerstones for that.
Main steps for that. Yeah. You can't pick your own life path and run from life at the same time.
Exactly. Any final thoughts?
I think you said it all. I think that was really a great way to sum it up. I loved that.
Okay, well, thank you so much
It
for
was so
joining us
good.
this week. And if you would please hit the like button on our Facebook page, share this video out with your friends and family. We really appreciate your shares, your comments. We have many exciting things going on with Earth and Sky right now. We just started a new Reiki class. We have other classes coming up, and we have our crystal store now as well. So let us know if you'd like
You
an
wanna
appointment to
come? Yeah.
come see what we have, or if you'd like to join us. Feel free to contact us.
Yep.
And thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube and liking our Facebook. Have a great week, everyone.
Yay.